So we continue diving into chapter 4. Reading today to prepare. I felt so much great gratitude for to Gurudev, that he instructed me to do this seva. These verses, they're so simple, and well, they're not all simple. Many are very simple, and they open the door to exactly where we want to go, to understand the mood and the feelings of radha in our own lives. That's how I understand this chapter 4. Not an instruction, not a user's manual, not a command, but a story about what the soul can do. And a story about how Caitanya Mahaprabhu is not only for us God, but a model of a soul for every soul. This is one of the very most important realizations of our path, our practice, our tradition compared to Western traditions. That is that we are soul beings. That's the same for Western traditions. That's nothing new. But by being a soul being for us means having a part of the divine in us. And this means what the divine experiences, what the divine plays out in the spiritual world also plays out in our souls. So the whole landscape of feelings and experiences that God, as the divine couple, lives, these are available to us. It is too much to say that we have them. It's too much to say that we are God. That's too much. But that we are a tiny atom of the divine, and through the experience and the example of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we have the ability to feel divine feelings. The example that Prabhupada gives many times in his writings is that God is the sun and we are the sun rays. So that everything that is in the sun is coming through us too, even though we are not the Almighty Sun. So this is how we read this chapter 4. This is how we read Caitanya Mahaprabhu's life, as a kind of picture of what is inside our own hearts, what is inside our own souls. Someone who's completely realized, completely enlightened, someone who's found her Siddhadeha, doesn't need this picture. That person is already skipping and dancing through the forests of Vrindavan with the loving couple Radha and Mohan. But for the rest of us, incomplete souls, incomplete realized. These images, these pictures are the key to our growth. Because, two things. Because they show us where we're going. And more importantly, even, they give us the inspiration, the desire, the will to go there, to practice. So every time these kinds of writings, Caitanya Caritamrta, of course, but others as well, like Vilapa Kusumanjali that we're reading in the morning class, they take us on a voyage not to a foreign place, but into our own souls. That's where the adventure is, my brothers and sisters. Because, like I said a moment ago, the soul is part and parcel of the soul of God. So our task is to explore this landscape, this beautiful territory of our own soul. And by doing that, we will come closer to the divine. When by doing that completely, we will, at the moment we leave the body, will become part of the divine. So bhakti is not an abstract science. It's extremely concrete. It couldn't be more concrete. Atheists criticize believers that they're too abstract. They're living in their imaginations. They're living in their fantasies. But bhaktas like us were completely empirical, completely in the facts. And the facts are, what are we feeling right here, right now? What is it that's happening in my heart right now? What's happening in my soul right now? And how can I open it up and make it more central to my life? That's really what our sadhana is, our practice. Understand what's happening in our hearts and make it a more, dominant part of our lives. Make it the center of our lives. Make it the meaning of our lives. So let our heart grow. Well, let our experience of our heart grow and squeeze out all the contingent, silly, time-wasting material parts of our lives and become fully in the life of our own hearts. That's in a way what our sadhana is. And that happens by harikatha like this, or with Gurudev, or with association, or speaking with others, or chanting, or reading. The purpose of all that is not to make you smarter, but to make you feel more. So that's our goal. And that's for today, the glorification of Caitanya Caritamrta, and my thanks to our dear Gurudev for this service. Last time we read 7 verses from verse 51 to 56. Verse 51 of chapter 4 was a kind of description of Lord Caitanya, a sort of glorification of him. And there were many beautiful characteristics given, but the most important one, the most moving one, the most meaningful one, was that he is the Caitanya is the essence of the love of the gopis. The gopis we know in their lila, in their pastime, are in love with Krishna. And when he plays his flute or when he does any of his attractive pastimes, they're immediately drawn to him. They go to him. They can't help it. Even though they are in ordinary domestic lives, parts of society, they run into the woods and they run into the woods to find the Krishna. So their love represents a kind of pure spiritual love. The discovery that love itself is divine, that love in its pure form is a love of God, and that everyone can feel this. But then Caitanya is the essence of that love. And we interpreted last week that the essence means that if you put all this love together, combined and condensed, that love for Krishna, that love for God, which would be also called Prem, is Radha herself. So, in this description of Caitanya, we discovered that he is the condensation of the love of all the gopis, namely Radha. Verse 52, we talked about Krishna's desires, and we remembered that Caitanya has no message, no teaching, or very little, just the 8 Shikshastakam. But he's there to bring feeling. He appears in order to bring feelings to the highest level. Verse 53 was about religion, and then we had to go back and think about what religion means. Religion is often understood as rules and regulations. But Caitanya came and turned this idea on the head and said that the highest religion is the giving of pure love. And then verse 54 was a very quick statement that, well, now we've been hinting about Caitanya, let's come to the point. And I think I said a few things about what a hint is. Well, we'll come back to that later. 55 was a verse from Swarup Damodar's notebooks. So the friend and servant and secretary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the last part of his life. His name is Swarup Damodar Goswami. And lots of what is in Caitanya Caritamrta is based on his notebooks. So he was very good at writing down what he observed. And there was a verse about how Radha and Mohan, how their love is changed by appearing as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Radha and Mohan in Indian literature and philosophy, they've appeared many times in different forms, as lovers, as actually married couple. But what has been missing all through the tradition of Indian literature, and what appears when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears as Radha Mohan is the discovery that there's an inner desire in the soul to love. And the highest example of that inner desire of the soul to love is the desire of God himself to love. The desire that Krishna has to love God. As God, he's the object of all the love of the gopis and all the devotees, but he's never experienced giving love to the divine, to God. So inspired by Radha, through the way that she has given her love, he says, I'm going to take the feelings, the mood, the position of Radha. And I will learn what it is like to love at the highest level, not to be loved at the highest level, which is already wonderful, of course, but to give the love at the highest level. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life means. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, who says, everything's good, I am all love, I possess all love, but there's one thing I've never experienced, and that is to give love at the divine level. So now I'm going to appear in another incarnation called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm going to appear as myself, as Krishna, but I'm going to take the feelings of the one who loves me. And thereby I will experience that. I will have that experience of loving the divine. Finally, verse 56 was very short verse about the pastimes of Radha and Mohan. And there was a bit of a critique, a criticism of the materialists who don't understand Radha and Mohan. And it's very useful to remember that criticism, because it helps us to be clear about what we do not believe. The materialists think that things are things, that things are independent, autonomous, that my teacup is my teacup and my book is my book, and that my son is my son and I am who I am, that everything is reduced, cooked down to its material form. But what Radha and Mohan show, what Bhakti believes, and we're not the first, is that the meaning of existence is in the relation between things. And the relation between things is never material. So what can it be? The relation between people, the relation between me and my work activities, the relation between my friends and their play activities. What are these relations? These are feelings. These are emotions. These are spirit. These are soul. So a materialist will say that cause and effect is material. So if one ball hits another ball, clack, then the second ball will move because of a material cause. But we understand that causes are spiritual. That there are material causes, but even deeper and greater and more meaningful causes are the causes that come from feelings. And that if I want to understand myself as a soul, I need to go deeply into the question of what feelings my actions are symptoms of. Okay, we'll move forward. Now we continue with verse, 57. Sehi duid eka eba Caitanya goshani rasa asfadite done haila eka tani. And Srila Prabhupada translates, now, to enjoy Ras, they have appeared in one body as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these two, he's referring to who? He's referring to Radha and Mohan. Radha and Mohan, who have met before, who have loved before. Radha is the chief of the gopis. But until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have not come or have not shared the realization that the highest form of the divine is devotion. That is, that the highest form of the divine is this thing that exists between divine lovers. Yes, it's very nice to love Krishna, like all the gopis do. Krishna is divine, he's beautiful, he's wonderful, he's rich, he's full of love, plays flute like a rock star. And Radha, she's of course the most beautiful of the gopis too. So they're both lovable. And they both love, but the realization that comes with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that what is between them is what the divine is. Prema doesn't mean God is lovable. Prema means love for God. That experience that's going on when we're loving God. That's the highest. And this, for Krishna, was impossible to experience without Radha. So he needs Radha to do this. And therefore, he appears in the body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to experience this. And this is where that verse is starting. It says, now to enjoy Ras, they have appeared in one body. And what we really have to notice is that Krishna doesn't appear like that in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to know something or to get something. He appears like that because he wants to feel something. Krishna appears like that in order to relish, in order to enjoy something he's never enjoyed before. That highest feeling, ras, which means passionate emotion, flavor of passionate emotion. So sometimes, no, very often, not just sometimes, we talk about, also in Eastern philosophy, about enlightenment as having knowledge. And we understand, we go to the guru to get some knowledge. What is the meaning of life? Or we go to a wise person and to get some knowledge. But for us, realization means feeling. How can I get access to that deepest, purest feeling inside me? Already inside me. Cooking and waiting and wanting to be felt. And this, it's not just our problem, it's not just our wish, it's Krishna's wish too. He was frustrated. He wasn't getting what he wanted. And so he said, okay, it's time for me to appear again as Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Then I can feel this thing I've never felt. And I wonder, well, how did he know that there was something to feel? And how did he know that? He saw all the gopis, how happy they were. He saw Radha, how delighted she was by loving, by being a lover. So this really turns upside down our kind of basic egoism. The best is that when I get the pleasure. The best is when you love me. The best is when that I'm most comfortable and in the best position. The discovery of wonderful Krishna was that no, there's something better. And that's to give love. And I know that you know this. We all know this. That's why we're here. That's why we're a family. We all know how wonderful it feels to be devoted, to give love. To do it in service, in simple service, and sometimes bigger service. To watch others do it. To watch Gurudev serve and give love. This is the miracle insight of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And you won't find this any place else, except in the life and times of Jesus, who was also understood that love was not a pot of, was not a pile of gold, but something to give, something to act upon, something to give away. So Krishna, he knew this somehow. He had an intuition. He saw it in Radha. He saw Radha giving love and said, wow, if only I could be as wonderful as Radha and give love too. So knowing is replaced by feeling completely. There's nothing to know. Or even better, let's turn our language upside down on its head and say, knowledge is actually feeling. To know is to feel. To know is to feel. Is it raining in the streets of Tokyo? Oh, I don't know. I'll call Ramni and ask if it's raining, and then she'll be able to tell me. Yes, no. But you know what? Even when I know that there's water bits falling down onto the ground on the streets of Tokyo, I will feel something for that. I'll feel all the memories of the times in my childhood when rain fell on my head. I'll feel and remember the times when I liked to stomp in the puddles, the pools of water and irritate my mother. And I'll think of the times when I was cold. I'll think of the times when I was impatient and angry for getting wet. I'll think of the times when I wanted nothing else but to stand in the rain. I'll think of all my Japanese friends. I'll think of Ramani and whether she likes the rain in Tokyo. I'll think of wet Japanese people. It'll be full of feelings. You get my point. You understand? Yes, there's some information there. Rain, yes. But this information is impossible to separate from feeling. There is no information that is not already feeling. I don't care how elementary the information is. You say to me then, wait, 1 + 2, that's 3, that's information, where's the feeling? And I tell you, when I learned that 1 + 2 is 3, there were tears in my eyes. there's feeling.
Radhe Radhe Uddhava. And with our dear Gurudev, we learned that 1 + 1 is 3.
Exactly. I think the extra one is the feeling, you see. Wonderful. Oh dear, Divya says there's thunderstorm warning in Tokyo, so take your umbrella when you go out.
It's already night.
Yeah, but still thunderstorms come. So what I was trying to meditate on was why Krishna did this, why he appeared as Caitanya. It was kind of a risk, he didn't know what it would be like. It was kind of based on feelings. And what do you call that? Intuition. Sorry, I take a little bit of time on this because I really believe it's important. The difference between knowledge and feeling. Knowledge, what we say we know on the one hand, and what we say we feel on the other hand. Because what we feel is something we know, isn't it? In fact, it's the most intimate thing we know. Before I know that 1 + 1 is 2, I know that I feel fear, or happiness, or love, or in some way the feelings are more scientific. We in the West, we search for science. And we invented mathematics so that we could say that 1 + 2 is 3. And then Gurudev comes along and says 1 + 1 is 3. We wanted to be more sure. But there is nothing that's more sure than feelings. I know immediately with 100% authority that I'm afraid. There's no more sure knowledge. And when I read in the newspaper, well, the sun will rise at 6:35 tomorrow. Yes, I know that, but I have to tell you it's 99% sure. Or I feel it's 99% sure. So this kind of knowing in the heart is really important to think about, to meditate on. And it's really important to embrace the knowledge you have of your feelings. And I would really go so far as to say that the greatest knowledge that we have is the knowledge that comes from our hearts. The greatest knowledge comes from our souls. And why is that? So I don't want to get too technical, but I want to go a little deeper. When we know a fact, like we know it's raining in Tokyo, that fact comes from outside of us. I have to look in the newspaper, or I have to text to Ramani, or this information is from outside of me. When I know through feeling, I look inside me. I look into what I already have. I look into what I already am. Feelings are knowledge that we have always had, always carrying around with us. In terms of feelings, we know everything. We just have to access that knowledge, realize that knowledge. Scientific knowledge, I know 1% of what I could know. So I have to read and read and travel and talk and listen, and oh my God, it's endless. And indeed, when my material life ends, I will not have finished. But to know the knowledge that's in my feelings, first of all, this task will always grow, will always be with me, will never end. The knowledge of my soul, this research project, I can do it for 1,000,000 years. And I will, and I have. The knowledge of my soul, it's all there, right now. The knowledge of your soul. It's all there waiting for you to research it, to understand it. And all this knowledge you will carry in your soul forever, because your soul will never disappear. So whereas this is about 2% of my books and my house. So I have 50 times more books downstairs and around. I'll take you a tour one day. I will never finish. I will leave this body. My children will send my books to the garbage, and they'll say he was a great guy, and it'll be done. But my soul knowledge, this will continue. This will go on forever. This is the knowledge that Krishna was looking for when he said, what would it be like to feel like Radha? That research project, and it goes on forever. He's ever exploring all the little nuances of the experience of loving another. So what Krishna was seeking was knowledge. But it's not a knowledge like we ordinarily talk about knowledge. It's knowledge, first of all, that is already there. It's knowledge that's endless. And it's knowledge that we can enjoy forever. I enjoy the knowledge from my books, but the clock is running. And they're getting dusty. They're getting dirty. But then the enjoyment I can have from knowledge of my soul, there's no clock. It's eternal. And the knowledge is endless as well. It's the knowledge about how many different ways can I love you. And do you think they're 10 or 12 or 15? No. The ways that Radha and Mohan can love each other they are endless. Just wait. Stand by. Watch and you'll see. So this feeling, and I finish on this point, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not going too long. This feeling is scientific knowledge is something we can have, we can acquire, we can get it. We read it in the paper, or we text to Ramani or whatever. And we get it, we have it. Knowledge from feeling is what we are. It's who we are. The knowledge of our soul is knowledge of what we already are. It's self-discovery. So material knowledge has a time and a place. We go and look on the internet, or we go and buy a book, or read the newspaper, and it comes to us through our material senses, our eyes, or maybe our ears. But spiritual knowledge comes from within us. It's an endless resource. And it's begging us to come and discover it. Verse 58. Iti lagi age Caritara virana, yaha haite haya gaurera mahima katana. Translation, therefore I shall first delineate the position of Radha and Krishna. From that description, the glory of Lord Chaitanya will be known. Therefore, I first delineate. Delineate, that means explain. I'll explain it for you. The position of Radha and Krishna. And from that description, you will see why Chaitanya is so wonderful. So literally, he's saying, Krishna Das Kaviraj is saying, let me tell you about the point of view from which we can describe the glory of Chaitanya. It says, it actually, Prabhupada says the position of Radha and Krishna, but Radha and Krishna are not in the verse. It says simply, let me tell you the position from which we can understand that glory. And that true position is like the position of Manjari. Manjari is the one who observes and understands and cares for this relation between Radha and Mohan. So when Krishna Das Kaviraj says, let me explain to you the position from which we can understand the glory of Chaitanya, he's talking about the Manjari position. The position of the one who cares for the loving relation that Chaitanya has come to show us. It's the position from which we can understand the love and we can understand the mood. And then now in the next verse, he goes on to explain the different positions. Radha, Mohan, Manjari in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So verse 59 now. Radhika hayana Krishnera pranaya vikara svarup shakti ladani nama yanhara. And Prabhupada translates like this. Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. Wow. Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. She is his internal energy called Ladani. So let's take the two verses and think about what they're saying to us. Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. We know that Krishna, the creator, the personality of Godhead, is all love. He's all beauty, he's all knowledge, he's all power, and he's all love. But the problem he has, which brings him to appear as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that he doesn't have the experience of giving this love. He's the ocean of nectar, the ocean of love. But as a lover, he's not experienced. He's all knowledge, but he knows nothing. He's all love, but he doesn't love. So Radha is the transformation of Krishna's love. Transformation of that ocean of nectar of love into love that's given. Energy of love. So Krishna in a way is an idea of love. And Radha is the, I don't know what to say, practitioner. She's the one who makes it happen. So really simple. So many have trouble getting past this very simple idea of the difference between love as something to worship or be devoted to, and loving. Everybody likes to see love in the Hollywood films, but what is it to give love? What is it to let the energy of love flow through us? To understand that, yeah, it's great to be endless love, but what does it feel like to love endlessly? And that's exactly the question Krishna asks himself. And Radha is the answer. So she transforms Krishna's love into loving. How? By her Ladani Shakti, her bliss-giving energy. Krishna is love, she's the lover. Radha is that part of Krishna that makes love an experience, that makes love something to be felt, not something to be done, an action. She makes it into an experience. How? Just like you and me, when we're fortunate, by giving it. The highest pleasure of human life is to give love. I think we all know this. I think we all have loved and have given love. But none of us has given enough of it, have we? None of us can. All of us need to give more. And what's wonderful, of course, obviously, it's simple to say, those who receive love benefit from it, and we who give that love benefit from it. And I think it's not easy to give love. I'll bet you agree. It's one thing to have sort of to love someone, to be in love, to have a distant relation to someone you love. But how do you give your love to that person? How do you give a form to your love? How do you give a body to that love? That's what our practice is seeking to understand. And that is what, to take it back to the forests of Raj, this is what Krishna is trying to do too. I don't need any love, he says. I've got all the love. But what about that special pleasure of giving it? Of having someone else see me and know that there's love from me flowing to them without any nonsense, without any conditions, without any games. This is what he offers in Radha. We try so hard to love. And society offers us lots of replacement loves. Like we can give flowers, we can give food, we can give gifts to our beloved. But these are only outward social replacements for the love that comes directly from the heart. So Krishna and Radha, they present quite an example for us. We know exactly what it's about. We know exactly what the life of Caitanya Mahaprabhu means. We live it today. In our little material worlds, in our sadhakavesh, we understand it, a tiny little percent. But we understand it. And now our challenge is to grow it. To grow that love we give to others. So this is the key of Ladani. This is the key of Ladani Shakti, the bliss-giving, happiness-giving, pleasure-giving energy. It's so important, this energy bit, because, well, for many reasons. One is that this is the way that things move, things flow. It's not enough to just have a big loving heart. The next step is to make that love flow to another heart. So there's an energy there. But also we have to remember, and we'll come back to this now in the next verse, that the divine is energy. Krishna is energy. Many different kinds of energy, and we'll start to talk about that now. Anything that happens in the spiritual plane happens through energy, through movement, through change, through transfer. Anything that happens is through energy. And what's really sweet is that, of course, all the scientists in the world agree with that. So you go into any university and ask a physicist or an engineer, and they'll say, oh yeah, energy, it's everything. And then if you ask them, well, do you include pleasure-giving energy? Then the conversation gets more complicated. But nonetheless, it's energy. Okay, verse 60. Ladani karaya Krishne anandas vadana. Ladani radvare kare bhaktera posana. And Prabhupada translates as follows. Ladani energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. Pardon me. Ladani energy gives Krishna pleasure. The word for pleasure is ananda, that we know, bliss, happiness, deep spiritual happiness. So Radha's love, when she loves him like this, he feels deep spiritual pleasure by the energy, by the fact that she's transferring this love to him. So this energy is in a way love itself. It takes this energy, Ladani Shakti is, if you imagine the ocean of love that we talk about so often, if you give it the energy of Radha, then it becomes a swiftly flowing river, swiftly flowing stream of emotion. So the difference between Krishna and Radha is the difference between an ocean and a stream. An ocean you can see and admire and wonder about how deep it is. A stream, it splashes against your legs and tries to knock you down on the ground, tries to touch every part of you. This is the energy of Radha's feelings. And then the second part of the verse is important too. First, there's the Ladani Shakti, the energy of love, of giving pleasure, of giving love to Krishna. But this energy also nourishes the devotees. That's us. When Krishna's heart is full of bliss, and this is an idea we need to think about deeply too. What does it mean for God to be full of bliss? But somehow, when his soul is fully in its natural mode, and that natural mode is one of positive energy, of pleasure, of happiness, when that happens, then the souls of the devotees are also full of pleasure. And why? Well, remember, because by the principle of the Upanishads, the soul of individual devotees is part and parcel of the soul of God. So the happiness of God appears as the happiness in the souls of the devotees. When God is happy, the devotees are happy. And here again, you don't need to believe me. You can just meditate on your own experience. That when you have given love, when you have succeeded in the difficult task of giving love to someone you love, given, so given away something, you feel happiness. The happiness comes to you, even though you have given the gift. You know how it is just with a birthday present. When you give the birthday present, you feel happy. Yes, the receiver is happy too, but you feel a special and deeper kind of happiness, even happier than the receiver of the gift is. A happiness that comes, that's in your deep heart. This is the bliss of God. God is pleased when you give love, because when you give love, Radha gives love. When Radha gives love, Mohan's heart is full of bliss. When Mohan's heart is full of bliss, then your heart is full of bliss. You've done this 100, 1,000 times in your lives. That simple, indescribable, soft and peaceful and gentle happiness you feel when you give something. When you give a gift selflessly. It's just the best thing, you know. So now comes some commentary from Prabhupada about this verse. The verse again, Ladani energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. So Prabhupada comments, Srila Jiva Goswami has elaborately discussed the Ladani potency in his Priti Sandarbha. So elaborately means in detail. He's discussed in detail this Ladani energy, this pleasure-giving energy, in his Priti Sandarbha. So the Sandarbha, for those of you who don't know, it's a series of 6 philosophical books that Jiva Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, one of the associates of Mahaprabhu, who wrote down his teachings. And the last one actually, the very last one is called Priti Sandarbha. Priti means, of course, love. So it's, in a way, you could call it the philosophy of love, which is the most beautiful book title I can imagine. So in that book, Jiva Goswami says, he says that the Vedas say, and now we're citing the Vedas, but I'm sorry, I looked this morning, I could not find where it comes from, but Prabhupada says it's from the Vedas. He says, only devotional service can lead one to the personality of Godhead. Only devotional service can lead one to the personality of Godhead. Only devotional service can help a devotee meet the Supreme Lord face to face. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is attracted by devotional service. And as such, the ultimate supremacy of Vedic knowledge rests in knowing the science of devotional service. This is a kind of philosophical way of saying what we've been saying together. That the key to the door of the divine is the same key to the door of our souls. And that key is devotion. Realizing that our relations to others are loving relations. They're not mechanical. They're not economical. They're loving. And if you want to meet God, the Supreme Lord, face to face, if you want to meet God, then meet by finding the love in your own soul. That's basically what we're saying there in much more philosophical terms. And now Prabhupada is going to comment, and he says, what is the particular attraction that makes the Supreme Lord enthusiastic to accept devotional service? And what is the nature of such service? The Vedic scriptures inform us that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, is self-sufficient. And that Maya, nescience, can never influence him at all. Nescience means ignorance. Therefore, the potency that overcomes the Supreme must be purely spiritual. Now, Prabhupada here is trying to explain that the highest level, the highest experience of the divine is feeling, is devotional, is spiritual. And that is why God is attracted to devotees who are devoted to Him, who have love for Him. Such a potency cannot be anything of the material manifestation. So the spiritual energy, love, cannot be, you can't find it in a book. The bliss enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be of material composition, like the impersonalist conception of the bliss of Brahman. An impersonalist is someone who thinks that God is an idea, that God is simply what is. And this is given the name of Brahman. And of course, for an impersonalist, there are no feelings. And for an impersonalist, there is no spiritual meaning. Everything is part of the totality of the world, of reality, and that is what God is. So Prabhupada is saying, it's an argument he makes quite often in his writing, that this can have nothing of feeling, this can have nothing of spirituality, because there is only one. There is one reality. And when we talk about leaving the body, liberation, then it means just becoming part of the one. Everything is one and unified. It's very beautiful, very elegant. It's very logical, too, in a way. But it makes it impossible to talk about relation. And that's what here we say in the next line from Prabhupada. Devotional service is reciprocation, back and forth, between two. And therefore it cannot be located simply within one's self. Therefore the bliss of self-realization, Brahmanandana, cannot be equated with devotional service. If you think that realizing yourself is simply disappearing into your soul, then you're wrong, says Prabhupada. Because the meaning of life is feeling. The meaning of life is love. And in order for there to be feeling or love, there needs to be two. There needs to be a giver and a taker. There needs to be relation. There needs to be devotion. So the idea that we could simply become one with the reality when we disappear destroys this conception of reality. There are always two, or more, but there are always two. That is why Caitanya Mahaprabhu, God himself, said, no, this isn't enough. There's something greater. There's something greater, which is devotion, which is feeling between me and another. And so he became two. So this point is at the heart of our practice. God is not the highest. Love is not the highest. The love that's given to God is the highest. Therefore we need two, Radha and Mohan. Therefore Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes and appears as Radha and Mohan in the same body. Now, Prabhupada is going to go into some detail about the different kinds of energy that are in the soul. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has three kinds of internal potency, three kinds of internal energy. Internal means spiritual. Internal means confidential, in the heart. The three kinds are Ladani Shakti, we've talked about it now, the pleasure potency. Sandhini Shakti, existential potency, the energy that makes us exist. And Samvit Shakti, or cognitive potency. Or maybe we could better say consciousness. And now he cites the Vishnu Purana, Prabhupada, which says, O Lord, you are the support of everything. The three attributes, Ladani, Sandhini, and Samvit, exist in you as one spiritual energy. So all these three energies make up one energy. But the material modes which cause happiness, misery, and mixtures of the two do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. These spiritual things exist in God. If there's any interruptions or distortions or corruption, then this is caused by material things mixing in with the spiritual energies, which is what you and I experience every single day, all day. Material energies mixing up with our good and simple and maybe somewhat young, undeveloped spiritual energies. So Prabhupada comments, Ladani is the personal manifestation of the blissfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which he enjoys pleasure. So it's usually said that Radha embodies this energy. So if we say that Krishna embodies all the love in the universe, Radha embodies all the energy which will carry that love, put that love to work, put that love into action. Because the pleasure potency, the Ladani Shakti, is perpetually present in the Supreme Lord, the theory of the impersonalist, that the Lord appears in the material mode of goodness, cannot be accepted. So if we believe that this love is there, flowing between two bodies through the energy, the pleasure-giving potency, then we cannot believe that God is one, like the impersonalists. The impersonalist conclusion is against the Vedic version that the Lord possesses a transcendental pleasure potency. So if there's an idea, if you accept the idea that God seeks happiness, then you can't be an impersonalist. If you think that God wants to feel love, wants his devotees to feel love, then you can't be an impersonalist, because in the impersonalist view, there is no exchange between one and the other, because there's only one. This would be a Buddhist worldview. That the divine is unified, and that the highest level of spiritual experience we can have is to dissolve into the divine, like a tea. What do you say? A block of sugar that you drop in a cup of tea. It dissolves beautifully into the tea, and it's gone, but it's there. We don't accept this because we believe that love is higher. And love means two. It's the best mathematics in the world. Love requires two. Preferably more. When the pleasure potency of Supreme Personality of Godhead is exhibited, is shown by His grace in the person of a devotee, that manifestation is called love of God. Love of God means prem. To be clear, love for God. So when in our individual souls, the highest level of pleasure-giving potency, the greatest presence of Radha in our hearts, is love of God, is prema. When we're fully realized Radha Dasis, which we'll all be someday, we will have nothing but prem, love for God. Radha is the energy enabling love of God. Therefore, devotional service reciprocated between the Lord and his devotee is an exhibition, it's a showing of the transcendental pleasure potency of the Lord. In other words, when you feel this love for God in only a little atom, 1 teaspoon, 1 little soup spoon, when you feel that, that is the presence of the transcendental love of God in you. That's the proof. That's the evidence. When you feel that feeling, you're feeling the divine. And this is wonderful. It's really unique in our practice, in our tradition, that you can understand that every feeling of love you have in your heart is a feeling of love for the divine. An expression of that love, a representation of that love, an expansion of that love. So when you feel that love for your child, or for your partner, or for your cat, this love is real. And this love is proof that you are divine. That your soul is real, that your soul is part and parcel of the divine. So cherish that and focus on it in your meditation. That love I feel for my child, that love I feel for my girlfriend, that love I feel for my cat, where is that coming from? And then follow it back down into yourself. Follow that feeling. Try to find out where its source is. And when you find the source, then you will be very happy. So Prabhupada continues, and then we'll finish with this commentary. The potency of Supreme Personality of Godhead that always enriches him. So this energy always makes him richer. Even if it's coming from him, it makes him richer. The more that love flows, the greater he is, the greater he feels, the more beautiful he is, the more rich he is. The potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that always enriches him with transcendental bliss is not material. But the Shankarites have accepted it as such. What are they? These are the Advaita Vedanta people. These are the people who are non-dual, that they believe, like the impersonalists, they believe that reality is one. And that the highest spiritual position is to be unity with reality. Like the cube of sugar in the teacup, dissolved into it. Part of it, yes, beautifully integrated into it, but there's no difference between the soul and the whole. Bhakti is the practice and the tradition of relation, of devotion, which gives a huge meaning to every single feeling that we have every moment of our everyday lives. So in the Advaita Vedanta, the impersonalist story, we have to purify our souls so that one day we can become nothing. We can become part of the whole. In Bhakti, it's completely the opposite. In Bhakti, it's enrich my feelings, deepen my heart, intensify my loves, all of my loves, from chocolate ice cream to the cat, to your husband, to your guru, to your God. All of it, make it stronger, strengthen it, deepen it, and that's where you will find the divine. Not in nothingness, but in emotional fullness. That's why we like to talk about such things as nectar and honey and all these juicy things that are so sweet and sticky, and we want everything to become sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. So Prabhupada's in disagreement with the Shankarits about this, because in Advaita Vedanta philosophy, there's no dualism, there's no relation. So finally he says, those ignorant persons cannot understand the distinction between impersonal spiritual bliss, like the Buddhists say, my soul becomes the sugar cube in the cup of tea, and the variegatedness, so that means all the many, many differences and variations of the spiritual pleasure potency. So the task of our hearts and the task of actually Radha and Mohan in the Vrindavan Leela is to explore all the endless variations of kinds of love that they can feel, the kinds of hearts that they have. The Ladani potency gives the Lord all transcendental pleasure, and the Lord bestows such a potency upon his pure devotees. So again, the pleasure, the bliss of Krishna becomes the bliss of the devotees. It's what you call in the West a win-win situation. The more you love, the more love grows. The more you love, the more love you receive. The more you love, the more happiness you receive. And this is going to translate into this idea of Satchitananda, being, consciousness, and bliss, which is the way the oldest Vedas writings describe the soul and the soul of God. But this we will take up next week.